Imagine standing at your own anniversary party, surrounded by friends and family, only to hear your husband announce, right then and there, that he has a new wife. Sounds like a nightmare, right? For Sarah, it was reality. But what she did next? No one saw it coming. Hello family, welcome to True Life Stories. Please subscribe and leave a like for us, it means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. Sarah Thompson stared at her reflection in the mirror of the upscale restaurant's bathroom, adjusting the straps of her navy blue cocktail dress. The one Michael always said made her eyes stand out. Her hands trembled slightly, a lingering unease tightening her chest. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration. 10 years of marriage. A decade of shared dreams, laughter, and sacrifices. But deep down, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She had noticed the signs, Michael's sudden distance, his hushed phone calls, the late nights at work, that left him coming home smelling like a perfume she never wore. And yet, she had silenced her instincts, convincing herself that she was overthinking things. A murmur of laughter filtered through the door, reminding her that she couldn't hide forever. Their friends and family had gathered in the private dining room, expecting smiles, toasts, and a perfect love story. A fairy tale. Taking a deep breath, Sarah forced a smile and stepped out. Warm candlelight flickered over familiar faces, glasses clinked, and the scent of deep red roses, the same ones from their wedding, filled the air. For a fleeting moment, she let herself believe. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe tonight would prove her fears unfounded. But what she didn't know was that this night wasn't the start of another decade together. It was the beginning of the end. Sarah stepped into the dining room, her heels clicking softly against the polished wooden floor. The restaurant's golden glow bathed everything in warmth, laughter, clinking glasses, the gentle hum of conversation. On the surface, it was perfect. Her best friend Lisa was the first to notice her. "There's the woman of the hour," she said, wrapping Sarah in a quick hug. "You look stunning. Michael's a lucky man." Lucky. The word twisted in Sarah's chest. If only Lisa knew the truth. She scanned the room, searching for her husband. It wasn't hard to find him. Michael was in the center of it all, as always, laughing easily, one hand tucked into his pocket, the other gripping a glass of whiskey. He had always been good at this. Charming. Charismatic. A man who could walk into a room and own it. Sarah's eyes trailed over him. He looked at ease, enjoying the attention, as if tonight meant something to him. As if he wasn't keeping secrets. Her stomach tightened. For months now, the doubts had been gnawing at her. The late nights. The sudden business trips. The distant looks when he thought she wasn't watching. She had brushed it all aside, convincing herself it was just stress, that she was imagining things. But deep down, she knew better. The first real crack had appeared 3 months ago. Michael had left his phone on the nightstand while he showered. It wasn't like her to snoop, she trusted him. But that night, something inside her had whispered, "Look." The message on the screen had been short. "I miss you. Can't wait to see you again." No name. Just a heart emoji. Sarah had stared at it, her breath caught in her throat. She could have opened the phone. She could have searched for answers. But instead, she had set it down and walked away, convincing herself there had to be an explanation. Now, standing at their anniversary party, she wasn't so sure anymore. "Sarah?" Lisa's voice pulled her back. "You okay?" Sarah forced a smile. "Yeah, just taking it all in." Lisa grinned. "Well, let's get you some champagne. It's not every day you celebrate 10 years. Sarah nodded, but as she turned back toward Michael, she caught something, a flicker of something in his eyes. He was looking at her now, studying her, but there was no warmth. No excitement. Just calculation. And in that moment, Sarah knew. Something was about to happen. And whatever it was, she wasn't ready for it. The clinking of silverware against crystal rang out, bringing the room to a hush. Conversations died down, replaced by eager smiles and expectant glances. Michael stood at the head of the table, his whiskey glass raised, the dim candlelight casting a golden hue over his sharp features. Sarah felt her breath hitch. This was it. The moment she had been dreading without even knowing why. Michael's eyes swept across the room, lingering on familiar faces. Their parents, old college friends, colleagues from his firm. He smiled, his signature charm on full display. 10 years, he began, his voice smooth and confident. A decade of love, laughter, and memories. The room murmured in agreement. Sarah forced a smile, her fingers tightening around the delicate stem of her champagne flute. "When Sarah and I stood at the altar all those years ago," he continued, glancing at her briefly, "I thought I knew what love was, what commitment meant." Sarah felt something shift in his tone, something almost rehearsed. "But love evolves," Michael went on. "People change. And sometimes we have to embrace the unexpected." A prickle of unease crawled up Sarah's spine. She glanced at Lisa, who gave her a small, reassuring nod, completely unaware of the ice settling in Sarah's veins. Michael took a deep breath, then smiled. A different kind of smile this time. Colder. Detached. "It's time for a new chapter." Silence fell over the room. Sarah's pulse roared in her ears. "I've moved on," he said simply, his voice unnervingly calm. Then, with deliberate slowness, he turned toward the far end of the room. A tall, willowy blonde in a form-fitting black dress stepped forward. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Alicia, my new wife." The world stopped. For a moment, Sarah thought she had misheard. The words repeated in her mind, disjointed, foreign, impossible. Then came the reaction. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone dropped a glass, the shatter echoing through the stunned silence. Sarah's mother let out an audible cry. Lisa's mouth fell open, her expression one of pure horror. But Sarah? She stood frozen, staring at the woman, at Alicia, as she stepped to Michael's side, placing a delicate hand on his arm. Her husband's arm. The room spun. The flowers, the candlelight, the warm chatter from just moments ago, it all blurred together in a surreal haze. She willed herself to move, to speak, to do something. But all she could do was stare as Michael turned back to her, a feigned look of regret on his face. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way, Sarah," he said, though his voice held no real remorse. "But I couldn't keep living a lie. Alicia and I were in love." A cold, sharp pain twisted in Sarah's chest. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Michael had just announced his new wife at their anniversary party. And in that moment, as the whispers turned to murmurs and the murmurs turned to chaos, something inside Sarah snapped. The room was frozen in time, as if the air had been sucked out and replaced with sheer disbelief. No one spoke. No one moved. The weight of Michael's words hung thick in the air, suffocating. Sarah's breath came in short, shallow bursts. She could hear the rapid beating of her own heart, a dull roar in her ears. She blinked, trying to process what had just happened. Did he really just... Her mother was the first to react. "What?" The word escaped her lips like a strangled gasp, her eyes wide with shock. Then came the murmurs. A ripple of confusion spread through the crowd. Lisa's chair scraped against the floor as she shot to her feet. "Michael, what the hell is this?" she demanded, her voice sharp with fury. Michael sighed, as if all of this, the gasps, the outrage, the audacity of people reacting, was simply an inconvenience to him. "I know this is shocking," he said, his tone infuriatingly calm. "But I had to be honest. Sarah deserves the truth." "Honest?" Sarah felt the word slice through her like a jagged knife. "Honesty would have been telling me before inviting everyone we love here, before humiliating me in front of them. Honesty wouldn't have looked like this." She turned her gaze to Alicia, the woman standing so confidently by Michael's side. She was beautiful, tall, slender, blonde. "How long?" Sarah wanted to ask. "How long have you been sleeping with my husband?" Instead, she stared at Michael, her voice betraying nothing. "So, this was your plan?" Michael exhaled slowly, as if speaking to a child. "I didn't want to hurt you, Sarah. But I couldn't keep pretending. Alicia and I—" "Stop," Sarah cut him off. She could feel the walls around her cracking, the emotions threatening to break free. People were still watching, whispering, eyes darting between her and Michael as if waiting for her to shatter. She refused to give them that satisfaction. Her father, usually a man of few words, stepped forward, his face red with barely contained rage. "Michael," he growled, "what kind of man does this? You've humiliated my daughter in front of everyone. Our family. Her friends." Michael had the nerve to smirk. "I didn't expect everyone to be so dramatic." That did it. Sarah's mother lunged forward, grabbing the nearest glass of champagne and hurling it at Michael. It shattered against the table in front of him, golden liquid spilling across the pristine white tablecloth. Chaos erupted. Lisa was already reaching for Sarah, whispering, "Let's go. You don't have to stay here." But Sarah didn't move. She looked at Michael again, taking in his expression. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't guilty. He was enjoying this. And that was when the cold, calculated rage started replacing the shock. Sarah straightened, adjusting the hem of her dress. Her voice, when she spoke, was steady, controlled. "You really think you've won," she said quietly, just loud enough for him to hear over the rising chatter of the room. Michael's smirk didn't waver. "I think it's time we all move forward, Sarah. You'll be fine. Eventually." A slow smile spread across her lips, but there was no warmth behind it. Sarah's pulse thundered in her ears. The weight of Michael's betrayal pressed against her chest, threatening to suffocate her. She had spent 10 years building a life with this man, trusting him, loving him. And now, in front of all their friends and family, he had torn it apart with a smug grin and a casual introduction of his new wife. The room was still in shock, the silence stretching unbearably. A few guests whispered in hushed voices. Her mother was gripping the table so tightly her knuckles had turned white. Lisa, Sarah's best friend, looked ready to launch her drink at Michael's face. But Sarah? She stood frozen, her nails digging into her palm as she fought the tidal wave of emotions crashing inside her. Michael expected her to break. He was watching her carefully, his eyes scanning for tears, for a sob, for a desperate plea. His fingers curled protectively around Alicia's waist, as if shielding his prize from any retaliation. Humiliation burned hot in Sarah's veins, but something else ignited within her, anger. Not the weak, helpless kind. This was something sharper, stronger. A fire that refused to be extinguished. She straightened her spine, lifting her chin just enough to meet Michael's gaze head-on. She would not crumble. She would not give him that satisfaction. Taking a deep breath, Sarah slowly reached for the champagne flute in front of her. The glass felt cool in her grip, a stark contrast to the heat simmering beneath her skin. Then she did something no one expected. She smiled. It wasn't a warm, loving smile. No, this was something entirely different. Something calculated, chilling, and laced with unspoken promises. Michael's smug expression faltered just slightly. Good. With the room still watching, Sarah raised her glass, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "To new beginnings," she said, her tone smooth, unwavering. She let the words hang in the air, savoring the confusion flickering across Michael's face. Then, without breaking eye contact, she tipped the glass and downed the champagne in one slow, deliberate sip. The whispers grew louder. Michael's smirk returned, but this time, it wasn't as confident. Alicia shifted uncomfortably under the weight of the tension. Sarah set the glass down carefully, then leaned in just enough for only Michael to hear. "You will regret this. No anger. No tears. Just a promise." And then, with every ounce of grace she could muster, Sarah turned on her heel and walked away. She wasn't defeated. She was just getting started. As Sarah walked away from the table, the energy in the room shifted. The tension was no longer just between her and Michael. It had infected every guest, every conversation. The music, once a soft, elegant backdrop to the evening, now felt eerily inappropriate against the heavy silence. Michael had expected tears. He had expected anger, maybe even a dramatic outburst. What he had not expected was calculated control. Sarah stopped just before reaching the exit. She could feel dozens of eyes on her, waiting, wondering, what would she do next? Would she run out of the party in shame? Would she collapse into sobs? No. She turned slowly, her gaze locking onto Michael's. He stood there with Alicia at his side, his posture still relaxed, still smug. But there was something else now, a flicker of doubt. Sarah had spent a decade studying this man, learning his every expression, his every tell. And she saw it, clear as day. He wasn't entirely sure of himself anymore. Good. She walked back toward him, her heels clicking against the floor, each step deliberate, each second stretching unbearably. When she reached the table, she picked up a fresh glass of champagne. The bubbles rose quickly to the surface, much like the fury bubbling inside her, but she kept it contained. She wouldn't waste another moment letting her emotions control her. Instead, she lifted her glass once again, this time with purpose. "To Michael," she said, her voice smooth, unwavering. The room held its breath. "May you never forget the moment you made the worst mistake of your life." A sharp collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Someone let out a nervous laugh. Others simply stared, stunned. Michael's smirk twitched, faltering just slightly. But still, he tried to maintain his composure. "Oh, come on, Sarah," he chuckled, shaking his head. "Let's be adults about this. You knew this was coming." Sarah tilted her head, her lips curving into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Did I?" she asked, her tone light, almost amused. She took a slow sip of her champagne before placing the glass down with precision. Then, leaning in just close enough for only Michael to hear, she whispered, "You will regret this." She pulled back just in time to see the mask of confidence slip from his face for just a fraction of a second. And then she turned on her heel and walked away. This wasn't an ending. This was just the beginning. Sarah didn't rush. She didn't run. She didn't stumble out of the venue in a fit of tears like Michael had probably imagined she would. No, she walked with purpose, with poise, with a quiet kind of power that made people part for her as she moved through the stunned crowd. Each step felt like a declaration. "You did not break me." She could feel the weight of 100 stares, pity, shock, curiosity. Some guests murmured to one another in hushed tones, their voices barely above a whisper. Others simply gawked, unsure of what to do or say. Lisa was the first to react. "Sarah, wait." Sarah had barely made it past the entrance when she felt a hand grasp her wrist. She turned to see Lisa's face, flushed with anger and concern. "Are you okay?" Lisa's voice was low but urgent, her dark eyes flicking back toward the ballroom where the betrayal had just unfolded like a scene from a twisted soap opera. Sarah let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Was she okay? The answer was complicated. Everything she thought she knew, her marriage, her future, her life, had been shattered in the most public, humiliating way possible. And yet, there was no suffocating despair. No breakdown. No begging. What she felt more than anything was clarity. "I will be," Sarah said simply. Lisa narrowed her eyes. "That's not the answer I expected." "I know." Lisa hesitated, as if bracing herself for the emotional explosion that never came. Then she sighed. "Look, you don't have to act strong right now. You just got blindsided in front of God, half the city. You can scream. You can cry. I have wine in my car." Sarah almost laughed. "Almost. Oh, trust me, I will have my moment." She exhaled slowly, glancing back toward the venue doors. "But not here. Not now." Lisa studied her carefully. "So what now?" Sarah straightened her shoulders. "Now," she repeated. "Now I leave. And then, I plan." Lisa's eyebrows shot up. "Plan? Michael thinks he won tonight." Sarah's voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "Let him enjoy the moment. Let him believe he got away with it. Because soon enough he'll realize." She paused, a small, knowing smirk forming on her lips. "The biggest mistake of his life wasn't leaving me. It was underestimating me." Lisa stared at her, then let out a low whistle. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." Sarah finally allowed herself a small smile. Too late. Then, without another word, she stepped into the night, ready to begin the next chapter of her life, and Michael's downfall. Sarah stood outside the venue, inhaling the crisp night air. The muffled chatter and clinking glasses from the party still echoed behind her, but she was done playing the role of the devoted wife. Michael had rewritten the script. Now she would finish the story. She wasn't just leaving him. She was about to destroy him. Lisa's car was idling at the curb. Sarah slid into the passenger seat, her hands surprisingly steady as she pulled out her phone. "What's the plan?" Lisa asked, gripping the wheel like she was ready to run someone over. Sarah smirked. "Step 1. Control the narrative." Her fingers moved swiftly, unlocking her phone and opening her social media. She could already see messages flooding in, texts, missed calls, even posts tagging her. Everyone wanted to know what had just happened. Instead of hiding, she leaned into it. With one deep breath, she typed, 10 years of marriage, only to be blindsided at our anniversary. Betrayal is a lesson, not a loss. Watch this space. #new beginnings. She hit post. Lisa gasped. "Girl, you just set the internet on fire." "Good." Sarah exhaled. "Let's burn this all down." As Lisa drove, Sarah opened her banking app. Michael had always handled their finances, assuming she was too naive to notice his little adjustments. But Sarah had been paying attention, watching, learning. She tapped through the accounts. Joint savings? Already transferred half to her personal account last week. Credit cards? Locked. Mortgage? In her name. Michael thought he held all the power. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. Lisa glanced over. "So, how bad is it?" Sarah smirked. "For him. Very." Sarah scrolled through her notifications. Her post was spreading fast. People were already commenting, speculating. Then, she noticed something even better. Michael's company's official account had posted a photo earlier that evening. Camera with flash, celebrating 10 years of marriage with our esteemed CEO, Michael Thompson. Oh, this was too easy. Sarah copied the post and replied directly. Interesting. Does his new wife know about this? Lisa almost swerved into the next lane. You did not just. Oh, I did. Sarah grinned. Within seconds, comments exploded. Employees, clients, shareholders. Everyone was watching. Michael had built his image on being a devoted family man. His betrayal wasn't just a personal scandal anymore. It was a professional disaster. Sarah's phone buzzed. Michael. She let it ring. Let him sweat. Then a text popped up. Michael, what the hell are you doing? Sarah stared at the screen, then typed back. Sarah, ending this the way it should have been. You wanted a public scene? Enjoy it. A pause. 3 dots blinking. Then another message. Let's talk. In private. Michael wrote. Sarah chuckled. Now he wanted privacy? Too late. She typed one final reply. Sarah, no, Michael. Now we do this my way. Then she blocked his number. Lisa pulled up to Sarah's apartment. So, what now? Lisa asked. Sarah stepped out, feeling lighter than she had in years. She turned back, a wicked gleam in her eyes. Now, I rebuild. And Michael? He watches everything he took for granted crumble. Lisa grinned. Damn. Remind me never to betray you. Sarah smirked. Smart choice. And with that, she walked inside, not broken, not defeated, but reborn. 1 month later, Sarah sat at the cafe corner table, sipping her cappuccino as she scrolled through her phone. The past month had been a whirlwind of revelations, consequences, and well-earned victories. Michael's empire, his career, reputation, and personal life, had unraveled faster than she had even anticipated. After Sarah's social media post went viral, Michael's company board had been flooded with complaints from investors and clients who no longer trusted him. His carefully curated image as a devoted husband and respected CEO had shattered, and as expected, Alicia wasn't prepared for the storm. Turns out, being the other woman isn't as glamorous when the whole world knows about it. Less than 2 weeks after their grand reveal, Alicia dumped him. Publicly, of course. Sarah had seen the headlines. Michael Thompson's new bride leaves him amid PR scandal. Fallen CEO faces financial turmoil after wife exposes infidelity. Sarah couldn't help but smirk. But that wasn't even the best part. Before leaving Michael, Alicia had done what most mistresses turned wives do, spent recklessly. She had expected a life of luxury, but with Michael facing financial and professional ruin, his assets were frozen and his bank accounts drained. Sarah, on the other hand, had played it smart. She had transferred her share of their savings before the announcement. She had sold their house before Michael could contest it. And best of all, she had secured a seat on the board of Michael's company, thanks to shareholders who saw her as the wronged but intelligent ex-wife. Which meant she had personally voted to remove Michael as CEO. Poetic justice. Sarah was just about to put her phone away when a shadow fell over her table. Michael. He looked nothing like the confident man who had so arrogantly humiliated her at their anniversary party. His suit was wrinkled, his hair slightly unkempt, and for the first time in years he looked lost. Sarah. His voice was quieter than usual, less sure of itself. She took another slow sip of her coffee before meeting his gaze. Michael. He hesitated, then sighed. You got what you wanted. Sarah tilted her head. Did I? Michael sat down across from her, rubbing a hand over his face. You've destroyed everything. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. No, Michael. You did that all by yourself. I just made sure you faced the consequences. He looked away, jaw tightening. I shouldn't have done it that way. You shouldn't have done it at all, she corrected. But you did. And now you have to live with it. Michael sighed. Is this what you wanted? Revenge? Sarah considered that. Had this all been about revenge? Maybe at first. But now, looking at him, broken, defeated, without the power he once held over her, she realized something. No, Michael. She leaned forward, her expression unreadable. I never wanted revenge. I wanted freedom. And now, I have it. Michael said nothing. He just nodded, as if finally understanding what he had lost. Sarah stood, tossing a few bills onto the table. Enjoy your coffee, Michael. And with that, she walked away, not looking back, not needing to. Sarah didn't just survive Michael's betrayal. She thrived. She moved into a sleek new apartment, took a position at a rival company, and started building something for herself, on her own terms. She was no longer Michael's wife. She was Sarah Thompson, a woman reborn, stronger than ever. And as for Michael? Well, he was just a lesson she had learned. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the story. Do not forget to turn on your notification for my next video.